welcome to UI5ers Live. As we had to cancel our webcast in June because of holidays, we especially have been looking forward to today. And as you can see, we also invited quite some guests to our round. And first of all, I want to welcome Marcel Schork and Ruben Tuida from the community. Hi, Marcel.
Hi.
And hi, Ruben.
Hi.
Yeah. Attentive participants will remember Marcel from one of our previous episodes where we discussed with him his approach to provide customizing options for easy UI5. And Ruben is actually a former member of the UI5 core development team, and we are very delighted that he reminded true to UI5 and now supports UI5 from within the community. Marcel and Ruben will present today a project they are currently working on, and this project is about enabling their own web components library to UI5. So actually, they have a quite similar use case we currently working on with our web components library, and I'm really looking forward to hear how they solve this in their project. And then further we have Katharina Sergieva and Eugen Retzenkind from SAP with us. Hi, Katharina.
Hello.
Hi, Eugen.
Yep, hi.
They too are front-end developers and part of the team working on SAP product footprint management. And today they will talk about a notification management system they implemented to their project. So, and as always with me are Stefan Beck.
Hi.
Peter Müßig.
Hi.
And Andreas Kunz.
Hello.
So, and then I would just hand over to Marcel and Ruben.
Yeah, thanks, Margot. Yeah, thanks for having us again. So as Margot already said, the next 15 to 20 minutes, we will give you some insights into the core UI5-Bridge. So our custom control library that wraps a stencil web component library. Our approach is to do this at runtime compared to SAP's approach, which is done at build time. Maybe I first want to clarify this term core UI. So core UI is the design system of my company. So you can compare it to Fiori. So what Fiori is for SAP is core UI for my company. So with that in mind, the following presentation will be much easier to understand. And before I will hand over to Ruben for all the technical details, I would like to just give you a short review of this project, how this collaboration came about, where we are coming from. So it's about 6 years back when we started together with another external partner to implement a UI5 custom control library that implements our core UI design system. At that time, we mainly used controls from the sub-M library and the sub-Policy, and we also developed some controls from scratch where we had no counterpart in the open UI5 control library. So it was 60% sit on top of sub-M and the rest was developed from scratch. And to speed up development at the time and also to save costs, we heavily made use of private control APIs. This for sure came with the trade-off that we have always a strict dependency to the UI5 version we developed the library with. So for now, we only support the UI5 version 171 because there we have support till, I guess, it's end of 2027. But always when we upgraded to new UI5 versions, we always had high costs. We had to test all the controls again because some of them were broken because of the use of private APIs. We had to retest all the applications which are using our component library, our custom control library very thoroughly after upgrades. We had really some disadvantages with this, I would call it old custom control library. And luckily, it was 3 years back when colleagues of mine in the non-SAP department started an inner source project, and they started to implement this core UI design system in a web component library. So a framework agnostic approach where we can use this web components in any framework or even without a web app framework. And they are using Stencil for that. So Stencil from the Ionic team, maybe you have heard about that. You can imagine Stencil as a web component compiler, or more specifically a compiler that creates custom elements. And this Stencil framework combines many concepts of popular frameworks like Angular or React, and it compresses this into a simple build time tool. So the components itself are developed with TypeScript. The markup is done in JSX, and we are using CSS variables for the theming. And because of the facts, we want to implement new components of our design system in the future only in one UI library. And also we had these drawbacks I currently mentioned in the old custom control library. We started a project together with the company of Ruben it was 14 months ago. And we had the goal to build a custom control library that wraps this existing stencil web components library in an easy and effective way, so that when we have new components in the web component library, that we just have maybe to click a button and it's wrapped in an UI5 custom control library. That's the main goal of this project, and we call this custom control library UI5-Bridge. Yeah, for the technical details, I will now just hand over to Ruben. Stage is yours.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, great to be back. So hello, everybody who recognized me. Yeah, since time is short, let's just jump right into the topic. As Marcel already mentioned, yeah, we call it the UI5-Bridge that just simply wraps the core UI library. I will just give a brief look into the architecture and lifecycle and a bit of deployment, how we ensure that the maintenance effort is as little as possible. And a brief look into how we test it currently and our upcoming plans. So Marcel already said a lot what the bridge is. So basically it's a custom control library completely written in TypeScript in the meantime. Yeah, in the beginning we started with, we'll come to that later. So as Marcel already said, we simply wrap these stencil web components as UI5 controls during runtime. So inside we have the core UI library stuff itself. And during runtime, we gonna wrap these and inject them to UI5. And the next page will show how it works. Yeah, as I already mentioned in the beginning, there was JavaScript because there was no TypeScript generator available. So I just used the JavaScript generator and later transformed it manually into TypeScript, which was quite cumbersome and had several learnings. So yeah, especially the difference between JavaScript and TypeScript. And also to be stable against further upgrades and so on, we also already avoided any usage of jQuery. So I know it was talked a lot, or maybe already years back, that the plan is somewhere, somehow, whatever, it is intended to remove jQuery from the UI5 framework. And therefore, we also said, no, we do either we use the modules itself, or we do it with, let's say, allowed mechanisms. And inside the library, we also have several node scripts that are necessary and used for build time, for exchanging versions, and so on and so on. And in a diagram, it's quite simple. So the library is quite slim. So our main module is our control factory that is triggered during loading the library. As mentioned before, we have our third-party library, which just contains all core UI artifacts. I will come to that later. What especially is very necessary for creating the controls. And to be able to create controls, we have just these two main classes, let's say, which is just a so-called template to generate all the necessary controls. And since we have, let's say, two kinds of metadata, we had to merge them into types separately. So it can be consumed at once from the abstract control. So therefore we have the metadata. And as usual, there are always some exceptions of controls or components, etc. Yeah, guess what? The table is the one. So yeah, there are some exceptions for the table and stuff. So this diagram simply reflects into a, let's say, common structure of the library. We have all these things. Yeah, the corresponding source folder with all the stuff. Here, the third-party folder with all the generated JavaScript files from Core UI, and especially the corresponding docs JSON, which is the entire container of the Core UI metadata, which we use during runtime to know which properties do we have to provide, which aggregations, and so on and so on. So simply just the control metadata is contained there and also consumed. And the rest of the files is, yeah, quite obvious for any app or library. So let's go into loading or initiating the library. So usually we just start with, yeah, the core or the app triggers the library loading. And usually you have a bit of code where you have to provide a list of controls with just its names. Yeah, this is first fetched from the factory, providing the docs JSON. So we iterate through the entire JSON file, determine the corresponding names of the controls, return these names to, yeah, make the core able to load the library. Then it's initiated. And afterwards, we do a separate step, just loading the controls. So then we also have the merged metadata. And we also run through this and we inject it with sub UI require, especially with sub UI require preload. I know it's kind of private, but not really private. But yeah, it works, and we can just, yeah, provide the control itself without creating an instance. So when the application creates a corresponding control, then it is first created. So we just provide it to the core, and it is maybe like the core does. Yeah. And another bit for the lifecycle is the deployment of the bridge itself. So usually we have, yeah, the development on our side, and when doing just a simple push, we have on the other side, we have the DevOps stuff. Here we have a pipeline, a usual build pipeline that does the linting, the testing, and creates an NPM package, which is then deployed to the JFrog Artifactory. So for those who don't know, JFrog is, let's say, a pool of build artifacts where you can publish it and later on also consume it. So it's like NPM, but internally. And therefore, all developers or app developers that need to use the bridge can simply do it with NPM install and just do normal development. And as Marcel already said, yeah, we would like to be safe against any changes from the Core UI library itself. So the pipeline or the corresponding process looks quite similar with one exception. So there's a release pipeline for Core UI. And when there's a new release, whether it may be new properties, new components, or whatever inside Core UI, this release pipeline simply triggers the same pipeline just for the usual development. by injecting all build artifacts directly into the third-party folder, and also providing the docs.json, because otherwise we won't be able to create anything. And the rest of the process is quite simple. Yeah, already coming to the testing stuff. Currently, we still do it with WebDriver IO natively, because I didn't manage to make VDI5 to run. So, but I've fortunately made it run with WebDriver IO basic. Also, another thing is to avoid this annoying, very annoying works on my machine syndrome. I decided to run the bridge for testing inside a Docker container, which is simply done via a preload build, creating the corresponding Docker container, run the container, and then simply run the tests as they should be done with WebDriver IO. So starting with the Chrome driver, running in Chrome, whether it may be headless or not. Also, it doesn't matter whether you run this on a Windows machine or a Mac or Linux machine. Yeah, I just tested it under Windows with the WSL. So in this case, I can, let's say, simulate a pipeline run. And yeah, I configured Mocha as test framework for it. So it's, I think, the default test framework when running WebDriver IO. And I use two reporters for that, which is one on one hand JUnit, and then the default WebDriver IO reporter. JUnit in this case is simply used for a pipeline run to publish the test result, which is visible here. Yeah, one special thing is linting and testing will be processed or is running in parallel, because they're absolutely not dependent on each other. And as I mentioned before, just by having this JUnit reporter, we're able to upload these test results to a pipeline run, which then shows this nice picture of it, how many tests and so on. And so we can easily determine whether something is breaking or how the test rate just evolves. Yeah, these are already our upcoming plans, what we still plan to do with the bridge. So currently we simply are able to publish it as NPM package, as I mentioned before, but we also would like to deploy it directly into subsystems. So if there's an application using the bridge itself, so that not the app itself must contain the bridge, but yeah, let's say also the Fiori Launchpad, etc., contains it, so that we just have one version of the bridge inside a system. We would like to deploy it directly, maybe with a separate pipeline, or just trigger the publish pipeline with our build pipeline. Yeah, we will see how we solve it. And the next thing is documentation. You also know how hard it was in the beginning with UI5 to provide proper documentation. So therefore we decided to use the demo kit as it is provided with the NPM package, and we do some customization for that. And yeah, we also will deploy it. I think we will deploy it to the Stackit, which is a Schwarz internal app cloud, so that all developers, or especially those developers who are familiar with developing UI5, that they have the same look and feel for the documentation as they are used to with UI5, with some exceptions. So all other UI5 controls we exclude from our version. only those who are, let's say, whitelisted, like layouts. And yeah, we also provide our samples with that, and will hopefully help the developers to use the bridge properly. That's it already. I don't know if there's time left for questions, or if we just move ahead to the other topic.
Yeah, I think there are time left for questions. So if there are some questions from the audience, please speak up here. I would be also interested in more technical details behind the scenes, because we talked also about that at the UI5Con, the difference between the runtime generation and the design time generation, both has implications. So the runtime means overhead every time the stuff is running. So it would be also interesting to have some kind of a performance insight into that, what the overhead is of generating this, because I think you also made optimizations on how you do that. And another question which came while looking into that also in my mind is, so you say you do the things with TypeScript, and if you provide your web components for other developers in your context, and you want to provide them as TypeScript, there need to be also code completion and stuff like this. Do you also generate something for that, DTS files, or how do you do that? So
inside the NPM package, there's still only JavaScript available. So we transpile it and put it correspondingly to the NPM package. So there's no real TypeScript support for the developers.
Okay, but there is then also no assets, so they just use it like they need to know that there is this table control from Schwarz Core UI then available, or something like that, and they can use it then via the namespace in the XML view, or via their names as imports then, and so on.
Yeah, like for usual UI5 JavaScript stuff.
But then if it goes ahead and further regarding the direction of having also TypeScript support for that, you also need to go in the direction of generating DTS and stuff like that, right?
Yes, we can think about that, providing that, yeah.
We should definitely think about that, yeah. For me as a customer, that's very important, because we have it for all the other standard SAP UI libraries, so we should also have it for our custom control library, definitely. And we have the metadata there, so it should be no rocket science to generate these DTS files from that.
Yeah, it would be also more interesting in the details how you do that, having the stencil files, having metadata for sure for that, which you can use then later on to generate it out, and how this runtime bridge is then looking in detail, what exactly you're doing. So compare that also with the UI5 web components code base, because there, with the retrofit or the enablement parts, we also have concepts like the slots can be automatically mapped as aggregations, and the events could be then properly automatically mapped then. And based on this metadata, maybe we can also have then a kind of a reuse of that base layer, because I also see that you don't use the web components base layer, which is available now since 197 in OpenUI5 and 1104 since then it will be also part of SAP UI5. And we can also follow up on that afterwards. Maybe it makes sense to go also in a detailed session with that.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, you're quite interested into it.
Just wanted to say, I think there are some topics where we could think of a deep dive into it, but this will be not enough time for today.
Yeah,
I think we should analyze it again, and then to see where we can have maybe hotspots and go more into detail there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, then maybe if Katharina and Eugen are, if you are ready, then we are looking forward to your topic now with the notification management system. And go ahead.
So very, very short presentation about us, who we are and why are we here with this topic of notification management. As Margot said, we're from Sustainability Department of SAP. We work on Product Footprint Management project and we develop Calculation Footprint Manager applications there with UI5 Freestyle. It's our first UI5 app. We're doing it for 1.5 years, so we started freshly new. Starting with like copy pasting everything from the documentation, which is quite well, and thank you so much for it. And for a while it worked quite nicely. We had just a couple message boxes, couple message toast, and it was pretty much it. But at some point in time, we got a requirement where we had to support a bunch of notifications. So the main purpose of our application is actually calculating of the CO2 emission of our customers. So they select some products and then the calculation should happen. And this calculation is super complex process with a bunch of stages, a bunch of statuses, and it can fail for the different reasons. Some of them related to the business logic, some of them related to the technical stuff. And it should be all showed to the user and showed in a different kinds of way, so in a different controls and targets. So we start to proceed with the average approach, and it didn't work out. Our code start pile up and turn into a mess. So at some point in time, Eugen came and said that we do need to do something about it, and we came up with this notification manager. So what do we mean under that? On a very high level, this is a quite simple system. So you have different notification sources. I listed ours, but it can be anywhere in your code. And you have some notification targets. So some UI5 controls that has to show to the user what it has to show. And you need some block of some manager, some codes that would analyze the notification and send it to the proper target. On practice, it's a bit more complex, definitely. Yeah. It looks like this. We ended up with this system. So what do we have here is, first of all, notification target registry. So as you see, we have currently 3 targets. It's message popover, message box, and message toast, but it can be any amount of controls. And the most important here is like registering and unregistering the target. So literally, it's just a list of the targets that we have. Then this main module called Notification Manager with its key functionality called Publish. So it has to receive the notification and it has to publish it to the respective target. And then we have some system services like Notification Result. It's actually object created to after and like as a appears as a result of this notification processing, and it creates a promise of the result of this showing of the notification, so we can analyze, I don't know, if user selects some dialect, for example, what exactly he selected. So it's done for these purposes. And one more part, a little bit more complex, is notification subscription. So just in case, if you want to have, you need to have some kind of observer on your notification. So in case of this notification arise, you would prefer that some code would be executed. You can subscribe on this notification, and this every time this notification arises, code would be executed as well. Yeah, and one more block left, notification. Definitely, in order to make this common system for all the notification, we need some unified notification format. And in more detail, our system looks like this with inheritance. So we have this like super basic notifications that has just target and a type. And more detailed one with like messages, and even more detailed that is related to exact controls that where this notification is coming from. And overall flow, right? The notification source on a diagram, it is notification producer, creates this notification and asks notification manager to publish it. A notification manager calls the target for this publication, and then target sends back the result of it. And notification manager itself can whether redirect the execution flow to subscription or just give it back to the source of the application. That's pretty much the architecture, and I will show how we use it technically in our code. So we have a list of main actions. So the first one is like target registration. We have a list of our targets specifically in the enumeration, and in order to create this stuff, we just create our registry, create a record which contains nothing more than type of the target and the actual control. I mean, this is not directly UI5 controls, it's some wrapper over it. I'll show it a little bit later. And we just need to send this registry to the notification manager so that it is aware of the list of objects it can publish into. Another point is creation of subscriptions. The system is pretty much similar to the targets, but for the targets, we have a special object. Subscription are contained as a list, as an array inside of notification manager, but the process of creation of it is quite the same. You create a subscription and you add it to the notification manager. And the final one, the most important part, is the publication of these notifications. So in execution, it's as simple as that. You create this general notification. On the example, it's like super general, but you can create a more specific notification, for example, message box notification. In this case, you don't have to mention the target type, and you definitely have this much bigger list of the properties that you have, because, for example, message popover and message box, definitely they have much more and different properties that you can set. And in the end of the day, you just do message publish, and this notification should appear. If you would prefer to have this after processing, you can have this on result call as well, where you will receive the execution afterwards and process the code. I can also show our implementation of this publish method. Sorry, just need to switch. What exactly is happening there? Probably we need to clean it up because it's a little bit not super clean code here, but I'll try to explain. So we do create the publication results that would be received afterwards. We do define the targets where we want to send our notification. Here's a block of code where we define the subscriptions that should be executed as a result of this publication. We prepare our promises for the notification result, and what we do is for the selected target we call the method publish. And this is what I meant under that we do not, targets are not actually controls but a wrapper on controls. Definitely, for example, UI5 message block doesn't know what publish mean, and for these purposes we need to have a wrapper whose main idea is actually the mapping of this our unified notification into the format that message box actually consuming it. But I'm making it on an example of message box, but actually it can be any control, and definitely with message box it's easy. With message popovers this is a little bit more complex situation, especially because it contains of the two different blocks that you need to manage, so it can be useful. So as you might see, we got different information from our notification, and we just do this mapping and in easy way just run message box over here. And this kind of wrappers we have for all the controls that we're currently using. That's pretty much it on our architecture. And maybe just to sum it up, it's definitely maybe not for solution, not for everyone, because if you don't have that many notification in your system, to have just a couple message boxes, it's going to be enough for you. But if you also like overflowed with notifications, and as we do, and especially with the different targets, because in our case, we have to from one place create notifications for really different targets, and you would have a bunch of different if clause and stuff like that. What I wanted to show as a final part is our validation method. This is where the majority of the application notification, for our run is created. And currently it looks like super clean because all of these different validations can create a bunch of different notifications for different controls. And currently all this complexity of these constraints are hidden into notification manager. And here you can just see that notifications are created, notifications are published. And in our case, currently it's like super easy and clean to support those kinds of solutions. And that's why in this kind of situations, we can only recommend that. That's all from my side, and I'll be here happy to answer the questions and like your feedback, comments, anything. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Katharina. I have immediately one question. How do I consume that? Is it free available for people, or it's more that it's a part of a product, or?
Currently, it's top secret and incorporated into our solution. But if people would interested in that, we probably might even create a library for it and make it publicly available.
And if we will create a library, we'll create it with TypeScript. So basically, we use ES5 specification, but yeah, with the target that it will be easy to convert to the TypeScript. That's it.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Maybe not only not that it's just a library, it could be also a module, something like that, even a bit more lightweight, what we had also played around with recently, but that would be also an interesting. So if there is demand for that, then this would be a nice thing to also provide the people.
Yep, we would be happy.
Already provided this for another parallel project that we have in parallel team, so they used already somehow. So we have already first experience and it works. So potentially, yes, we can try to create some kind of library or whatever, or module, and check with other projects that are not built or using our architecture and our approach. Can be really interesting.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I guess if there's even already internally a second project, it makes sense to have it like a encapsulated or like a module or so. But definitely, if our audience is interested in this and would like to have more access or easy access to this, yeah, also on our video, just leave a comment and we will direct it to the two of you, I guess.
It's a perfect fit for best of UI5, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know if you heard of this best of UI5, but we have a very active UI5 community doing also external projects with a nice page where you can find modules that are used or can be used and consumed. For sure, this would be a great solution that is by now missing there.
Great. We would be happy to. I think we can get in contact with you, so maybe you can explain us how to do it, because it's our first time. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So I also just put a link to Best of UI5 in the chat. So there are several options how to publish that and how to make it available. Yeah, we can discuss that. Depends also on the possibilities you have and how good your management accept that you do the open source parts then.
We will convince them for sure.
That's cool. So I see real open source enthusiasm.
We can help also to convince about the power of open source.
We can also help to convert it to TypeScript, by the way.
So you see immediately there is a massive amount of developers behind the scene who want to help make the thing.
Yeah, it would be a nice project between like our community and intern and SAP there again. So should work on this definitely. So I really like those collaborations.
Okay. We will check this topic more deeply about how to make it more public. We have not only this subsystem, we have many other subsystems. So we will be glad to present them as well.
Okay, cool. You said it, it's recorded. Are there any questions from the audience? Something you guys want to know? Okay, I see everyone is overwhelmed.
It's even me. I'm really looking forward for the recording, especially when I have to prepare it so I can go like more slowly through it, because it was really a great presentation, very well structured, but definitely something to think about.
Okay, so I think there was nothing in the QA, nothing in the chat. Then we are
at the end. Unbelievable. We stayed in time. Also, we had such great, huge topics somehow. Yeah.
I can make you exceed the time again. The table export if you want.
Then just go ahead. You have 2 minutes.
So I'll paste some technical details and links into the chat right now. Make sure to copy it out again. And so it's about 2 new features in the table export. Both are backend supported, so it's only running with an SAP backend or the UI5 client-side solution. The first one is PDF export. You can generate PDF files from the table data. So where you have normally a table export, there you can also export not spreadsheet but PDF files, which can have a digital signature generated in the backend. This is always available, automatically provided by Gateway when all the versions are new enough, by setting a certain annotation, PDF v1 features annotation in OData v2 and v4. And the smart table and MDC table automatically interpret this, and wherever you have a table export driven by the table, you will then also get the PDF export with no configuration except for the digital signature. The other thing is also table export. It's about exporting spreadsheets, so like Excel files. but not only to local files, which is already possible, but also to Google Workspace directly, and then opening the spreadsheet in the sheets.google.com Excel editors or spreadsheet editors, so to say. And this is also going through the backend. There's configuration in connection with the SDM required. The documentation links are in the chat now, but you can also find it, I guess, just by Googling if you're watching the video, or by putting the links to the video subtitles. Yeah, this is again always available where you already have table-driven export as soon as the configuration in the backend is done. So as soon as the backend is connected to Google Workspace, then you can export to a local file or to Google Workspace. So that's two new things that are there since UI5 1.102. So since 2 releases already. That's what I wanted to mention.
But still in time, Andreas. It's not exceeded.
Yeah, I'm thinking what else could I say? Maybe there's a question, a long one.
At least I cannot see any question. So at least we had some news. Cool. Thanks a lot, Andreas. I think that was quite interesting for the people. And for sure, we will share the links also with the video. And if there are no questions, thanks again for joining us. Thanks for watching. And we are back in August. Then we will have a short break in September, but hope you will join us in August. I think it's August 11th. So be back in August and have a good day today.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.